And so, Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to speak briefly this afternoon, I believe it is now, and lend my support. So congratulations, and thank you for considering her this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Senator Rubio. Let the record reflect that Senator Rubio leans aye on the nomination.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Michael. That was very good. Secretary Dooley, welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
And we have a nice tradition here in the committee where we want to give the nominees an opportunity to introduce any family member or close friend or anybody else you want to acknowledge here today. And then if you might make a brief opening statement, and then we have some questions for you, and we want to get right into it. Let me, before you do that, though, just say that, you know, we could spend hours here today on the budget, and I kind of feel like we're kindred spirits in a little way, because I came into my position 2 years ago and was immediately hit with a $42 billion budget deficit, and here you come on, public service, and you know, you're dealing with the hand you're dealt, and I think, you know, we can stipulate that you're going to have to do more with less, that you're going to do your very best with that difficult challenge. We're also, you know, interested, especially in this context, to hear about the agency itself and how you think it might need some change, what you want to do around consolidations and that sort of thing, and how we use your arm of government to provide the services in the most efficient way possible. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Senator, and all of the senators. I appreciate the opportunity to have visited with you each privately and to have answered your questions. So I won't go over that. I'll briefly remind you a little bit about my background that I think you've already seen, and a very special thank you to Senator Rubio. That was really quite a surprise. And yes, I am from Hanford, and my husband and I went to high school together. We've been married almost 39 years. We gave our daughters wings, and they indeed flew. One of them is in Little Rock, Arkansas, and the mother of our first grandchild, born less than a month ago.
Congratulations.
And our younger daughter is in Washington, D.C. And so none of them can be with me today, but it is a joy to be a part of a strong family, and I appreciate that. I started my career in state service when Governor Reagan was governor at the State Personnel Board. And early in this governor's first term, I was invited to go on what I thought was a short-term assignment for a few months to work on pay and benefits, and it turned into 7.5 years. And in the course of my work for him, I was invited to work with the legislature, and I served as a deputy legislative secretary. At that time, we were organized so that I represented the Senate, and my buddy B.T. Collins represented the Assembly. And then 2 years later, I was legislative secretary when he went out to run the CCC. And I mention that only because it is an important factor in a couple of ways for my return to state government at this point in my career. I believe in the value and importance of the people's business. It was a great moment for my family for me to work for the state of California. Everybody was proud of that, as I was. And I think that we've done a disservice to a lot of the people who do the public's business at every level of government, and the extent to which I can help restore public confidence and encourage the spirit of public service that I felt when I was a young woman just out of college. Is important to me, and it is a priority of mine. The second reason that I agreed to come back into state service is because I've spent the last 10 years in healthcare. I was general counsel for a children's hospital, and then was privileged to serve as the president of the Association of Children's Hospitals. And so I've learned a fair bit about our delivery system, and we're at a very critical moment where we simply have to get the costs of healthcare under control in order to provide the services as we go forward, and I think I have an opportunity to be a part of that great challenge. And it was just to be quite honest, impossible to tell the governor no. I joked and said that I could either say yes or I could get out of health care, because how could you represent the healthcare industry to a governor that you had just said no to? So I was a bit conscripted, but I am very happy to be here and to work with you all. And I mentioned my previous and early experience in the legislature because of my deep and abiding respect for the co-equal branches of government. And that leads to the second category of information about myself that I'd like to share at the beginning, which is my leadership style. I am very much a partner-oriented person. It is very important for me to work side by side with people and not top-down. And I think that's very important as we go forward in realignment and our relationship with the counties. It's very important as we look at any restructuring of the agency and the departments that we are partners and that we're in the agency facilitating the work of the departments. We're an extension of the governor's office, and the departments are an extension of the agency, and we are all working side by side with the members of the legislature and our partners in county government and the nonprofits that do so much of the work in health and human services. Clearly, with a $12.5 billion budget shortfall and the size of the Health and Human Services Agency, there's no other place in the budget that has the kind of discretionary opportunity. And so, regrettably, over $5 billion of the $12.5 billion reductions are coming from my agency. And we have taken as much care as 2 months of transition would allow from November to January to put our very best thinking in the form of the budget that the governor presented. And we've spent the last 60 days working together with you to try to refine those proposals and improve them where possible. And we're making significant headway. And as I know, whether it's morning or night, it's one long day right now, and we're all working very hard to get to an agreement by March 10th. And I appreciate the investment that all of you have made and your staff, and we will continue to do our part to be partners with you as we solve this problem and set the stage for some really transformational work in the state of California. So I think I will stop there and answer your questions and take my lead from you.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Secretary. I'm going to begin with Senator Ahlquist.
Thank you very much. As the Pro Tem mentioned there, we could spend hours and hours. We don't have quite that time, but I did appreciate you coming into the office, and we did spend a lot of time. So basically, I'm going to ask 2 questions and then just make a little statement on another topic. And before I do that, I should say, not to bias my questions and statements, but I think the governor did a fine job in appointing you.
Thank you.
With your excellent background and your compassion and sensitivity. Certainly that is needed in terms of the horrendous situation and the cuts that have to be made. You've been very thoughtful on the topic. So my first question is, in your letter to Rules Committee, you said, we can no longer do more with less. We must have an honest conversation about doing less with less, but doing it well. Can you expand on that thought? And as Secretary, how do you decide what to do less of?
Well, as I said, we took the time that we had before January to be as thoughtful as we could be about going through the entire budget. The reductions are made in every program, but not across the board. We didn't take a 5% or a 10% or a 15 or 20% across the board. We thoughtfully looked at the programs that we thought could best preserve the foundation of the safety net and reach the budget targets that we did. So our priorities are laid out in the budget that was proposed. Since then, we are working with the many people I have had. I meet practically from 7 in the morning till 9 at night with as many constituent representatives as I can to understand their perspectives, with county leaders, with directors, with program people, to try to refine this. There are many areas where we know that there are going to be adverse consequences. These cuts are consequential, and we know that. We have to be diligent as we go forward to determine as quickly as we can where the cuts have been too deep. And may take corrective action as we can do that. It is a high priority to me to have measurement standards, and as soon as we can get to the point where we're doing more ordinary work than this budget 24/7, I want to work with the departments. Many of them have already begun work on performance measures, and many of the performance measures are about process, and I want to go beyond process measures and get to outcome measures. And in the 10 years I've worked in hospital administration with quality measures and the CHART program, it's much easier said than done. It's very hard to determine what it is that we have as a goal and how to measure that, but it's very much my priority because I think it's really hard to expect people to perform to a measure that you haven't established, and so that will be a priority.
Thank you. The second question, Rules Committee sent you a letter with the following question: what are your goals as a board member of the Health Benefit Exchange? In your answer, you said the following: it will be my goal to ensure that the exchange does not promise more than the finances of California can deliver. That statement can be interpreted in several different ways, dependent on if you're an insurer who will offer insurance through the commission, if you are a taxpayer who is concerned about the potential size of the new bureaucracy, or if you are a consumer who will be mandated to purchase insurance. Could you please expand upon your comment and what you meant by it?
Yes, it's very simple. I meant that I will do everything to protect the general fund. The enabling legislation, which you know very well, having been the author, has a requirement that the exchange be self-supporting and that no general fund be used. At the establishment level, there's a $1 million grant from the federal government to set up the exchange, and there will be an establishment grant that the federal government will pay for, and they will pay for the subsidies for those that are eligible for subsidies. And the legislation makes very clear that no general fund will be provided for the operation of the exchange, and my response was specific to that general fund obligation. I will protect the language of that and assure that we're able to do our work in a self-sustaining way and not as an additional drain on the general fund.
Okay. And now I just have a statement, so this will be the end. There has been a lot of talk recently on the tax side of the balance sheet on dynamic modeling, the goal of which is measuring the general economic benefit of a tax cut, for example, the number of new jobs created and the amount of increased economic activity. As a former financial analyst at Stanford University, I believe that a dynamic model would be appropriate in measuring the economic effects of government spending and spending cuts. Recently in Budget Sub 3, on which I sit, as you know, we cut health and human service programs to the bone that affect seniors. Having a dynamic model measuring the effect of program cuts to seniors, I believe, would help us make better informed decisions. Factors you could consider include increased ER costs with seniors now going to emergency rooms, the number of jobs lost because ADHD providers are out of work, the loss of economic activity because families are not paying for private assisted living centers instead of using that money for other purposes, whether or not seniors sell their homes to pay for medical costs. Those are just some of the considerations. I want to thank the Secretary for understanding my concern, as I've expressed in our private meetings, and how do we track and monitor these cuts so that in the future we truly understand their net impact. I hope that as you mentioned, that when the current budget crisis is over, that we will sit down together and think of other ways to collaborate and measure the impacts of these safety net cuts. Thank you.
And I will do that, Senator. Thank you.
Let's go around the horn here. Senator Fuller?
Well, I'm very truly pleased to become better acquainted with Diana. As you know, she's from our area, and we are severely challenged in the current formula being first, second, and 10th lowest per capita reimbursement in the state. So we had a great conversation about how she plans to change behavior once the cuts are made, because we absolutely must change behavior in our state. We are, in our areas, for example, we receive $337 per person in poverty, as opposed to some that receive $1,000 and $2,000. So my whole concern, and Diana has been great, is how do we work with the underperforming districts? How do we find a way to make a new paradigm that works for us? Because we don't want to be on our underperforming list. And she had some great examples. So I thank Diana for that. And if you'd like to share one example of how you hope to change behavior, we'd love to hear it again.
Thank you, Senator. Well, I think that the heart of our realignment proposal is respecting the work and the priorities of the counties and the regions of the state. And one of the things that we did talk about was the recognition that in moving programs to the local level, that there are going to be disparities, and there are programs that are going to have more and less resource, and there are programs that are going to have more and less will, and there are going to be programs that have more or less priority in different places. The same things, as you pointed out, that work in Tulare County are not going to work in Alameda County, for example. And so I think one of the challenges for us at the state level is to recognize that we can't have what is commonly called statewide-ness, where we are having a one-size-fits-all approach. At the same time, we have to assure that we can have minimums that are met both in our duty and responsibility as a single state agency to monitor federal participation in these programs, but also to be very careful that we don't create situations that have occurred at other times in the past where there's great disparity in the provision of service, and we stimulate migration of people with need to the counties that can provide it. And indeed, most of the history of our state mandates have resulted from the counties that are providing more service insisting that the counties who are unable to provide that service do so to prevent that migration. And so there will be a great deal of work really when we reach agreement on March 10th, which I'm quite confident that we will, and we begin then the really hard work of implementing these plans with our local government partners to see that the people of Tulare County and Kern County and San Bernardino County are getting the services in a way that they understand and that they're willing to participate in, and that we respect those differences county by county. You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. Senator Harman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, with some information that's been provided to me, looking at a list of the departments that are in the agency, and if my count is right, it's about 15 different very important agencies. And so my question to you, and you have 31,000 positions in the agency. My numbers show an $80 billion budget, but maybe it's a little less than that. Now I'm sure you might quarrel with that number. There have been some cuts, as you indicated. But my question is whether or not you have given any consideration to attempting to merge, consolidate, or eliminate some of the departments to accommodate cost saving. Is that something that you're thinking about that might be possible?
Yes, Senator, it is. And I really believe that form follows function. So at the beginning of this administration, I have not made wholesale changes to leadership where there are vacancies. I've asked career servants of the state to step in and be acting directors until we can determine what the function is of those agencies, so that we're looking for leaders and selecting leaders that will meet the needs that we identify together as we go through this budget and realignment. And I would use mental health as an example. If the behavioral services that are coordinated at the state in the mental health department and the Department of Alcohol and Drug Abuse are moved to the local level, as is envisioned by the realignment proposal, then what's left at the Department of Mental Health is really managing the state hospitals, and the oversight responsibility may or may not fit there. So I've asked Cliff Allenby to serve as the acting director during this interim period until we determine what the Department of Mental Health would look like. Another example is the Department of Aging Services, and the services provided to the seniors are spread throughout the departments of the agency. And there are many organizations that have looked at that, the Little Hoover Commission, the Performance Review Committee, and I'm gathering that information and reviewing. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to look at the work that's already been done and come back with a thoughtful plan after March 10th, when we can look at what then is going to be a state responsibility and how should it be structured. I have left many positions vacant. I'm honoring the freeze, just as the governor has asked other departments of state government to keep the freeze in place until we understand what we need to do, looking only at exceptions for life and safety that are clearly the responsibility in this agency. So I expect that we will work together on a plan to be as efficient as we can, but always with the idea of the beneficiary at the center of it. What needs to be done, and how can we get the maximum amount of resource to the person who has the need, and that will be a priority of mine.
Good. I'm glad to hear that you are exploring those possibilities. I'd encourage you full speed ahead if it's appropriate. Sure. I did have an opportunity, as you know, to meet with you yesterday and answered many of the questions that I had at that time. I'm very supportive of your nomination, and that's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator De Leon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pro Tem. Madam Secretary, good afternoon.
Thank you.
I know we had an opportunity to speak yesterday, and I want to thank you for the opportunity and the time that you gave all of us with regards to very important issues that are facing California. As you know, you're in the thick of it right now, and some very draconian cuts are going to ensue quite shortly. And they're going to be, at the end of the day, bipartisan cuts across the board, both Democrats and Republicans. Let me throw this, and this is a more open-ended question, so I'm going to give you an opportunity as opposed to giving some specificity or detail on two issues that are very important to many folks across the board. I do hold them very dear, which is the whole issue of IHSS as well as ADHC. Expound on some of your thoughts on how perhaps, through your perspective, the executive branch can perhaps soften the blow, if you will, understanding and being quite cognizant that there's going to be cuts across the board, every department, every program imaginable. Any ideas?
Yes, thank you, Senator. The development of these programs, and I would put MSSP, the Multi-Purpose Seniors Program, in that same category with the Adult Day Health Centers and the In-Home Supportive Services, that they were designed and developed to help people stay in their homes and their communities. And so the first thing I would say is that I'm completely committed to the goals of the Olmstead decision, which has established requirements to assist in every way possible people coming into staying out of institutions and being maintained in their homes and communities. And not just because the courts require it, because it is a very human reality that people want to be in their homes and their communities. And so I am deeply committed to that goal. And so looking at the way these programs have developed over time to help families meet that need and help individuals stay in their homes as we begin to not be able to afford all of the programs that have been established. I don't want to and will not lose sight of the goal, which is keeping people in their homes and their communities. So as we look at in-home supportive services, for example, and the governor's proposal is to eliminate the portion of the payments that are for domestic services, but to maintain the services for medical services. And I think it's very important that we help build the in-home supportive services program and structure so that it can be a part of the healthcare delivery, that in-home supportive services can be a part of the care management team for these families, as it was a medical program when it started, and it needs to be. We need the care provided at that local level to assist families and keep members of those families in their homes. It is heartbreaking, the reductions that we're proposing, and there are many very dedicated people that are providing the services that are paid for in this program. But I think our focus has to be on the people receiving these services and our commitment to assisting them and keeping them out of the long-term care facilities that would otherwise result, and this is related to Senator Alquist's concern about long-term care. I have met with Patty Berg, and I've willingly and eagerly accepted her offer to help bring advisory groups together with those that already exist to be sure that we're doing everything we possibly can within the constraints of the resource restrictions that we have to keep people in their homes.
I would say this, Madam Secretary, is philosophically we agree, and within the framework of these very important programs, how we go about doing that after we have a budget established, and how we move forward, if that's the case, in the will of the body and the executive branch to bring certain reforms so we can have a more cooperative, collaborative, cross-unit, if you will, non-silo approach to this very important issue. And no doubt, I'd certainly like to be part of that. What I would ask, and I was very direct with Ms. Monsantos, and not during the confirmation hearing, but rather offline, was that we take this opportunity to be as creative as possible, if you will, with regards to, everything is fluid and dynamic from this point forward until it's etched in stone and the ink is dry. But we try to be as creative as possible because these are human lives. You're very acute of that, very aware of that, and I appreciate your answer. I'll say one thing, is yesterday's meeting, I came away extremely impressed. I came extremely impressed with your depth of knowledge, with your advocacy, with your character. And I will say this, that reading through the materials with regards to, you had an interview done and it didn't have a date or the name of the publication, but one of the questions was, if you had a magic wand, what would you do? And I know, hearing that you're from the Central Valley and the great Senator Michael Rubio also too geographically represents that area. Obviously, one of the biggest issues has been the issue of air quality. And I represent an area in Los Angeles that I have 6 to 7 major freeways that crisscross the district, the 2 to 5, the 101, the 110, the 710 freeway. And obviously with traditional pollutants, whether they be, aside from traditional pollutants, but whether it's CO or whether it's CO2 or whether it's particulate matter 2.5, NOx, SOx, traditional pollutants, and how it stunts a child's lung development and growth, and the high asthma rates, which I know are very similar to what happens and takes place in the Central Valley, which drives our health costs through the stratosphere. So I was elated to actually read that in your interview, in your Q&A session. One thing that I'm very, very impressed is the fact that in 1992, you decided to go to law school when your daughters were both 12 and 7 years of age, which is not the traditional route and journey. And so I have a lot of respect as a working mother, what you did when your daughters were, 12 and 7. So it's a quintessential California dream story, if you will, that you started as a secretary at Dean Witter, and now you're going to end up being the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So with that, congratulations, and I know you'll be an excellent secretary.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. I'd make 2 comments. I always joke that I was nearly 40 when I became a lawyer, so I hope I don't forget how I used to think before I was a lawyer. And I can't remember the second point. I wanted to know, this is very important. I'm glad I remembered it because air quality is very, very important in the Central Valley. When I worked at Children's Hospitals, we worked very hard for that, not only for the protection of the kids and the asthma rates that we were seeing at Children's Hospital, but because it was very, very difficult to recruit professionals to come to work at the hospital when they would read the air quality stories in the Fresno Bee. So it was really a serious problem. But the point I want to make is that we have a really excellent program that is just beginning beginning that was started in the past administration called Health in All Policies at the Department of Public Health. And it's a wonderful way to work with the Strategic Growth Council to ensure that throughout the planning structures of government at the state and local level that we're taking health into effect in many ways. So I would love to circle back with you and talk about the Health in All Policies that the Department of Public Health is taking the leadership on.
Thank you very much, Senator. A couple questions myself, Secretary.
I'm surprised.
Well,
I'm not.
Leave all the fun to everybody else here.
Right.
You mentioned in response to Senator Alquist's question that, paraphrasing, that you believe that outcome measures as opposed to just process measures are very important to measure the effectiveness of government. I agree with you completely. As we proceed over the next week and over the next months, does that requirement or necessity of performance measures also apply to realignment and those programs that that may be realigned to the county level in your view?
Yes, it does. And I think that we have some that are going to be established by the federal standards that we will continue to be the single state agency and will have to assure that the federal standards are met. But I think it's also an opportunity for us to advance our partnership with the counties and engage with them to assure that the resources are going to be as well spent as possible. I think there are lots of sources of expertise, and I am not an expert. I'm a lifelong learner, and there are a lot of people that I will learn from that I think we have to be very conscious of, and it will be, we will implement whatever you develop in the realignment project, but if there are ways to establish some guideposts or measurements, I think it would be very beneficial.
Sure. Related and unrelated to the next several days, I would ask you to just take a look at Assembly Bill 636 from, I don't remember what year it was now, 2002, I believe, which was our effort to develop outcome measures in the child welfare system county by county. And I think it has been a big success in terms of pushing counties in the right way towards, trying to increase improve outcomes around health, around education, around placement, et cetera. So, second question, there's a lot of talk around these parts these days about regulatory reform and how government can work better. And I'm thinking about OSHPD, which is within your bailiwick, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the complaint we hear a lot is whether it's because of furloughs or for maybe a variety of reasons, that the approval process to build hospitals or to retrofit hospitals, which is economic activity in and of itself, right? And job creator is just way too slow.
Right.
Can you speak to that a little bit and what recommendations you might have to make sure that projects which are good, clean, legitimate, approved, get done sooner
Senator.
rather than later?
Yes. I share your interest in breaking this free. Over the last 2 or 3 years, OSHPD made some pretty significant improvements in its output and their workload standards and very quantifiable measures of how long it was taking to do a plan and how much staff time it was taking, and they were improving dramatically, and that all began to slide backwards about a year ago with the freezes and the furloughs, and regrettably that has extended into the first couple of months of this administration. I have recently engaged directly with the administrative team, the Department of Finance and the Governor's Office and our own agency about getting some relief in the form of authorized overtime, and to the extent that we can be more efficient with putting staff in place. But this isn't the only place where we have the problem of using funds that aren't general fund. As we're looking at the budget, we're looking to save general fund, but there are many programs of the state that are not general fund, and so the effort to be efficient and not be putting people on the staff at the time when we may have to lay them off, they don't line up exactly right. And so we have to put people in some positions, like at Oshpod, even at a time when we may have to lose positions in another place. But I am absolutely committed to getting these projects going at the earliest possible moment.
I know our health committee has some interest in this issue as well, and I think we're going to want to continue a public dialogue, and also, if you can keep talking to us about what we can do to help you with that.
I will follow up with you on this because it's very timely.
Thank you. And then finally, we've had a chance to talk at some length about what you know to be one of my passions, and that is mental health and Proposition 63 specifically. And, I'm going to reluctantly agree to an $860 million hit to, I think, one of the most effective and best kept secrets in this state, and that is the Mental Health Services Act. I know, because I follow it closely, that if you look at the wonderful work of Steve Lopez, and anyone saw the movie The Soloist and the story of Nathaniel Ayers, that Prop 63 has funded about 17,000 full-service partnerships. I like to say 17,000 Nathaniels out there who are getting the kind of comprehensive help that they need to regain their lives. And yet I have great frustration, as I've expressed to you, and you inherit it, so it's not frustration with you, but great frustration that the Department of Mental Health is not telling the story. And, it's easy to, I don't criticize the governor for this because I'm going along with it, to take a whack at Prop 63 when, the folks in charge are not being aggressive when it comes to evaluation and when it comes to telling the stories about what this act means. I know, for example, that because of the cuts in core mental health and existing realignment funding, that Prop 63 is saving the mental health system.
That's right.
So now that you're new in the job, what can you tell me that would give me confidence that this part of your agency is going to get the attention and that there is going to be a full comprehensive evaluation that is going to be made public sometime sooner rather than later?
This is a hard one to answer because you and I talked about this, at least a month ago, perhaps longer ago, and I'm no closer to a concrete answer today than I was 30 days ago.
Appreciate the honesty.
We are, dancing as fast as we can to get things done, but that is a serious problem, and I take it seriously. I think that there are many obvious achievements of Prop 63 and the work of the Mental Health Services Act, and I will do all that I can to tell that story. I had hoped when we visited recently that we would be able to be telling that story by now, but we certainly will. And as I said earlier, the structure of the department is likely to change if behavioral health services are transferred to the local level. But as you know, our proposal was to maintain the performance review and outcomes measurement at the state level, and whether that review is through the oversight committee or it's at the Department of Public Health, I will pledge to you that it will be my personal priority to assure that it gets done, whoever ends up with the responsibility to do it.
And I know you will. And let me be clear what the motive here behind this question. No one's looking for a pat on the back here, although the people in the field and the people who are saving the lives of Nathaniel and thousands of others deserve a pat on the back. But a big part of improving the mental health of people is to reduce stigma, to bust stigma. Because too many people do not feel comfortable reaching out for the help that they need and that oftentimes is available. And one of the great ways to bust stigma is to show people that there are investments, programs, approaches that work, and that homelessness doesn't have to be hopelessness, and that people can regain their lives. And when those stories aren't told, think of the thousands of people then who aren't comfortable or confident enough to step forward and say, I need some help. So this is not an evaluation for evaluation's sake. This is to say, let's raise the profile of this so that more people come out of the shadows and regain their lives.
Thank you, Senator. I will be your partner in this.
The last question on this measure. One of the other organizational issues, and you sort of touched on it, is the fact that the Department of Mental Health itself is responsible for both state hospitals and the sex offender, mentally disordered sex offender program, as well as community mental health. And these two things, if you will, if you categorize them roughly, cannot be more different.
Right.
And I would like to see in this whole process over the next several months that the community piece of mental health be separated out from that department, or the other pieces that be separated out from the department, and that there be a focus of a department on community mental health. Because the two together make no sense to me, and I think the hospitals unfortunately get the attention and not the good stuff that's actually saving a lot of people's lives.
Well, the attention we get in the hospitals isn't always the attention that we want.
Well, that's right, too. That's exactly right. Thank you for indulging me and for being responsive to these concerns.
Thank you.
Let's hear from witnesses in support of the nomination.
If I might ask a point of personal privilege and invite my dear friend Don Jackson, who's come up from Fresno, to be the leadoff witness, if I might.
Of course. Mr. Jackson, you take as much time as you need, and everybody else 15 seconds, all right?
Well, I'd hone mine down to 10, but I'll expand it now. First of all, Mr. Pro Tem and Senators, it's a pleasure to be here, particularly to support Diane. I'm going to digress for 1 second so you'll understand why I feel competent to talk about Diane. For the last 10 years, I've served as chairman of the Maddie Institute, which is located at CSU Fresno. Ken Maddie was a dear friend for over 36 years. We were law partners. I ended up, through the years, being his lawyer and close confidant. That isn't why I got the chairmanship. It was a political faux pas on my part. Chuck was supposed to do it. But anyway, I've known Diane since her years as a legislative director for the governor in the late 70s. I followed her career. From the Valley, you pretty much know everybody who exhibits leadership. But more recently, for the last 7 years, she's served on the board, and I was very fortunate to have her as a board member. And more important than that, Diane and I did innumerable presentations over those 7 years, television, lectures, sometimes radio. And, of course, we came from different viewpoints. But under the Maddie Institute, you're required to approach all the issues on a nonpartisan basis. And the purpose is to educate and engage the public through a balanced presentation. Of all the people I worked with in these formats, whether it was our television shows or radio, I worked best with Diane. I felt she was the most knowledgeable, fair, and articulate with respect to all the issues we covered. Having observed her service as Vice President and General Counsel for Valley Children's Hospital, which is a hospital close to all of our hearts in the Valley, I can attest to her ability to work with the diverse groups to reach a consensus on difficult health care issues. She worked well with the underserved citizens, with the business community, and obtained support from all of these groups. I know that her responsibilities here will be broad and difficult, particularly with respect to the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, with the implementation of the Health Benefit Exchange, and most importantly, with the budget deficit. But I assure you that she will handle all of them with respect for those confronting her and above all, with the civility required to appropriately represent you, the governor, and the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for leading off and for very good testimony. Appreciate it. Mr. Passmore.
Mr. Pro Tem and members of the committee, I'm Gary Passmore, representing the Congress of California Seniors, and I'm here today to enthusiastically support the nomination of Diana Dooley to this Secretary of Health and Human Services position. It's obvious if you look at her resume, she's got the right professional background to undertake this task. I think after you read about her and spend some time with her, you learn that she's also got the personal, I believe your words were compassion and sensitivity, Senator, sensitivity to the terrible needs of many of the constituents that her agency deals with. So in the days ahead, we may not always agree. I can guarantee you that we won't, but we are really enthusiastic in support of her nomination. Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Thomas.
Hi, Mr. Chair and members. Terry Thomas. I'm here today on behalf of the California Association of Public Hospitals and Health Systems, who definitely endorse Diana's candidacy for the Secretary of the agency. On a more personal note and full disclosure, many, many years ago in this building, Diana gave me an opportunity to join her team and work with the legislature. And I just want to personally attest to her skills and some things that she said earlier in terms of allowing her staff and her team to fly and use their expertise. It's because of her that she, frankly, jump-started my career, for which I'm very grateful. But I also really learned from her her very deep respect for the legislature and the legislative process. And that's, I think, something that you will find invaluable as you work with her over the years. My organization will be working with her very closely on county issues and public hospital issues. But it's good to know that while we may not always agree, we will always discuss with great respect. And I know she will show all of you great respect as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Ms. Cabell.
Beth Capel on behalf of Health Access California, also here in support. We've had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Dooley already and to work with her on both the budget and the implementation of health reform, and look forward to continuing to do so.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Barbara Glazer with the California Hospital Association. We're here today to urge your support of this confirmation. CHA believes that Diana is very well suited to this position. She has extensive healthcare experience and knowledge. Her work in local and state government, and she has proven leadership skills. And we urge that you confirm her. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is really getting embarrassing.
Erin Auber-Givens on behalf of the Children's Specialty Care Coalition, here in strong support of Diana's candidacy for the secretary position. We've spent actually working very closely over the last year, working to transform how we provide health care for children with chronic conditions, and she's very well suited for this position, and we're happy to be here today. Thanks.
Thank you for coming.
Mr. Chair, members, Tim Madden, representing CalASAP, which is the California chapter of the American College of Emergency Physicians. We're very pleased to support Ms. Dooley's nomination for Secretary of Youth, Health and Human Services Agency. As the state struggles with the economic downturn, we've had some brief conversations with Ms. Dooley about the inevitable cuts that will be coming to programs and services in the health area. And as we discussed, as a result of those cuts, the need for those services don't necessarily go away. And unfortunately, many times they lead to those individuals coming to the only place, which is the emergency department. With these challenges, we believe it provides opportunities to look at things differently and look at fresh ways to approach these issues. CalASAP believes that Ms. Dooley is well suited with her background in healthcare policy and practice to look at different ways to make the emergency department work more efficiently to deal with the inevitable increases in wait times that await us as more patients come in. We respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Appreciate it.
Judith Regal with the County Health Executives Association. We're the county public health directors. We're really pleased to be here today to endorse Ms. Dooley. We have had the privilege of working with her in her most recent capacity, particularly on issues regarding the California Children's Services Program. And we're not only impressed with her amazing passion for serving these children, but her collaborative approaches to solve a problem that Diana mentioned earlier, her partner approach to getting things done, and we certainly have found that to be her style in the past in working with her and look forward to working with her more.
Thank you very much.
Marty Yamamoto, California Disability Community Action Network. I'm a family member, and I share that with Diana. She's also a family member of a person with disabilities. So I think that brings a certain sensitivity to the position and to the issues that we all face, just as Senator Elquist, you also share that. Obviously, we're here to support Diana Dooley, even though she doesn't need it from us. But I just want to say that while we disagree strongly with the proposed cuts to adult day health and to MSP and to IHSS and to developmental services, we strongly applaud the governor's many good appointments that he's made, including Ana Montesantos, Toby Douglas, Terry Delgadillo, and several of the others. So far as we know, he hasn't made anybody advance any appointments that resemble Charlie Sheen's qualifications. So I think that's a good thing. But Diana Dooley certainly stands as one of his best appointments. And John Kennedy once wrote that who we are speaks louder than what we say. And Diana Dooley's record is proven. She has a record that shows that her compassion, her competence, and her experience. And I think that will be so critical, as Senator Steinberg, you've alluded to too, about how when we get past this budget crisis. And we applaud your commitment for oversight and for monitoring the fallout, as Senator Elquist, you pointed out, and Senator DeLeon, about these cuts, and monitoring about and how do we correct any problems resulting from the reductions. Okay. And so we just want to end that we strongly support Secretary's appointment.
Excellent testimony, but for the Charlie Sheen reference.
You can edit that out.
Go ahead, next.
I Senator James Robert Benson, and my California with lifelong health and welfare needs, and I and the CDK and strongly support Mr. Dooley and look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you for all your advocacy, Mr. Benson, and for your testimony. Ms. Landsberg.
Mr. Chair and members, Elizabeth Landsberg with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. Very pleased to be here in support of Ms. Dooley's nomination. We've had the opportunity to work with Ms. Dooley on the Medi-Cal waiver and have had an opportunity to meet with her and are very compelled by both her expertise on healthcare issues, but also her articulated interest in making sure she's up to speed on all of the human services issues. She does have a huge number of departments under her auspices, and we have no doubt but that she cares deeply about all of them and will give them her full attention. This is a historic moment as California looks to implement health reform, and Ms. Dooley will play an important role in the agency in developing an eligibility enrollment system that will have 14 million Californians in Medi-Cal healthy families in the exchange. She'll importantly serve on the exchange board in her ex officio capacity, and we look forward very much to working with her. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next.
Kathleen Hamilton with the Children's Partnership. Good afternoon. We've had the privilege of working with Ms. Dooley for a number of years with our organization. So on behalf of the Children's Partnership, and in particular our co-president, Wendy Lazarus, we're honored and privileged to support her confirmation today. We know that you will be as impressed as we have been over the years with her knowledge and her deep grasp of important issues and her accessibility and willingness to work with a wide range of organizations to get good solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Good to see you. 6, how are you?
Hi. Jody Hicks with the California Medical Association, and I really just echo everyone's comments. We had the privilege with working with her in her past capacity. We've already had conversations with her this year, and it's a difficult year for all of us. And our physician leadership and myself met with her, and it was refreshing, and her knowledge and background is going to be important as we struggle for solutions this year. So we're pleased to support her. Thank you.
Thank you.
To set short with Children Now, we're supporting the nomination and the confirmation for Ms. Dooley. It was so refreshing to see the first words out of her mouth when she talked about her leadership style was partnership. She's already demonstrated that she's willing to partner with folks in the community, and we look forward to continuing that partnership to ensure that services for kids are ensured and well coordinated and delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Short. Mr. Palmer.
Chairman Steinberg and members, with the Health Officers Association of California, in strong support of Secretary Dooley's confirmation. We've already had excellent interaction with her on public health issues, and I really appreciate her statement today in support of health and all policies, something that the physician health officers in this state have been working on very diligently for the last several years. Thank you.
Thank you for testifying. Is there any opposition to Ms. Dooley's? More support. Mr. Perry, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
If there's anyone else, come on up. And
I'll be brief, Mr. Chair, members. Randy Perry there in Reed & Associates. We are actually, I'm here representing Aaron and myself and the rest of our team. Aaron's out of the state, or he would be sitting here himself. It's very important to him. We've worked with Secretary Dooley for many years now on a professional level, but personally, and it's actually a good thing Aaron's not here because he would remind everybody publicly how long ago they met. However, we strongly support her confirmation. She is a person of true character, and that's about it. It's a very emotional test. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Well, don't quite know what to do with this highly controversial it's a tough call.
If I may, Senator, I would just caution that one of the things that Jerry said often in his first term was about lowered expectations, and I feel compelled to lower them a bit after that testimony.
No, everyone, your reputation is about delivering the best possible result, but it's also about the way that you work, and that's not too high of an expectation, and it's one we know you'll easily meet because that's what you do. And obviously very proud to support your nomination and to really work with you during these tough times to try to save as much as possible, help as many people as possible, make government work more effectively, and create a better day.
Thank you.
Moved by Senator Alquist. Please call the roll on the nomination.
Senators Alquist? Alquist, aye. DeLeon? De Leon, aye. Fuller? Fuller, aye. Harmon? Harmon, aye. Steinberg?
Aye.
Steinberg, aye.
Thank you very much. This will go to the floor probably about 2 weeks.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it will be taken up, if not unanimously, it should be unanimously. So
thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. We do have a little bit more business to get through here. Thank you. Members, does anyone want to separate any of the remaining items? We've got item 1 and item 3 through 16. Is there any? Senator Harmon?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take the 2 remaining items on item 3, the confirmation of Mr. Andre and Mr. Aiken. I had a comment on Mr. Aiken, a supportive comment I'd just like to get on the record.
Go first, and then we'll take
you
them
want
all
to do that
together.
now? Then?
Yeah, do it all together.
Yeah, all
Is that
right,
okay?
fine. I just wanted to recognize Wiley Aiken as a prominent member of the Orange County community, probably the most prominent Democrat in the county, but he has done a lot of things for our community in Orange County, and I'm pleased to support his recommendation. Then the other item, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to separate out would be item number 15. I am supportive of that, but I do have some comments. You want me to comment on those?
Well, since it's my resolution, probably not.
I said I was supportive of it.
Yes, go ahead.
May I proceed?
Of course.
I'm supportive of the resolution, but I am concerned about the potential for the closure of parks in our statewide park system. Yesterday, I wrote a letter to the director of California Parks, Director Ruth Coleman, talking to her in the letter about exploring other possibilities for perhaps keeping our parks open. Trying to think out of the box. Can we have private concessionaires take over the administration of the parks? Could we have local charities, 501c3s, things of that nature? So I did want to outline that concern that I have. I recognize that probably some parks in California are unfortunately going to be closed. So
I got to tell you, thank you, Senator Harmon.
So that concludes my remarks.
It's my own resolution, but I want to put it over. I want to put it over. I don't want to do some feel-good resolution when there's this much at stake and the parks are at risk. Let's do the appropriate resolution, either positive or negative, after we get done with the budget. I'd like to put it over, please, without objection. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I was wondering if perhaps, I don't know if you'd have the answer to this question, item number 13. Or anyone else. Item 13. Just out of curiosity, I'll be supportive of it. What is Sunshine Week?
It's a week of sunshine.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
No, it's actually serious. It actually, and we've got a reporter in the audience here, it's also about recognizing the importance of government transparency.
Gotcha.
And
allowing the sunshine to come
and
in.
of making sure that we sunshine the work that we do here. So
and if I could, Mr. President, I cannot pass without citing the Republican analysis, which cites Justice Louis Brandeis of the United States Supreme Court, who said sunshine is the best disinfectant.
No question about it. It sure is. So we're going to put over 15, but beyond that, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 is off. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 16. All right. There's a motion on those measures. Moved by Senator De Leon. Please call the roll.
Senators Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. De Leon? Aye. De Leon, aye. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. Harmon? Harmon, aye. Steinberg?
Aye.
Steinberg, aye.
Very good. We now have a very brief executive session.